Well, another day, another drama in the Andrews government's botched hotel quarantine scheme. Leaked emails show senior health officials were warned from day one that security guards were ill-equipped for the work, and they demanded that police be called in to take control. And yet, Daniel Andrews is still hiding behind his inquiry.
Well, that's not a matter for me to determine either in fact or to offer you an opinion. We've got a retired judge, Jennifer Coate, doing that work, and that is the most appropriate way forward. It's entirely a matter for Judge Coate. Question might be appropriate, but me answering it certainly is not. Those matters, who was in charge, how that worked, decisions that were made, all of those issues are rightly the province of retired Judge Coate.
Let's bring in the panel. Goodness me. Social commentator Prue MacSween joins me from Sydney, and former Labor Senator Stephen Conroy in Melbourne. It's not good enough, Prue, is it? It's just not good enough.
It is not good enough, and hiding behind a $3 million inquiry is classic politics 101, you know, hoping that we'll forget about it when it's released in months to come. You know, the government has been aware that there's some dodgy practices in the security industry in Victoria, and yet they go ahead and appoint this private firm under the pretense of it being part of the Working for Victoria, you know, subsidy or promotion during the coronavirus pandemic to get jobs going. I mean, the whole thing has been so badly handled. But again, it's Andrews playing politics, putting politics before the people. And I just hope that the Victorian voters understand and remember this.
Stephen, you have been a minister. You know you're in trouble when the public servants start leaking against you and blaming each other, as we saw today. It was basic backside covering in those emails back in March. They warned there would be a mess, and we saw that mess. We all know about it now, and Victorians are living through it. The Premier, if he wants to bring back hotel quarantine, and he says he's bringing corrections officers to run it from here on in, and Qantas staff, etc., not police, unfortunately, and not the army, then he has to admit and make public what went wrong. Otherwise, who's got any faith that they'll get it right this time?
Look, I share some of your and Prue's frustrations when the New South Wales Premier instantly put in place a commission of inquiry into the Ruby Princess. It meant that there was going to be no ability to get to the bottom of the facts, and Brad Hazzard still has his job. But when the Victorian Premier follows along with the New South Wales Premier, I don't think it's helpful to not have accountability. I think the Victorian and New South Wales public deserve answers to basic questions. And I think obviously Daniel Andrews, who has had a blinder up until the last few weeks, first with the bushfires and now with coronavirus, I think he's looked a little evasive, and I think the public are frustrated and want to know there are answers, because if we're going to keep having to have quarantine, we want to know that this sort of outbreak can't happen again.
Yeah, well, I've lost confidence in the government, and I was just as hard, you were right to remind people, on Brad Hazzard, on the Ruby Princess inquiry they were hiding behind in New South Wales, as I am similarly in Victoria. But there's a catalogue of errors in Victoria. There's a lack of testing, allowing people not to take the tests. They're not calling out the various inquiries as they went wrong, because one of them in particular, Meatworks, was connected to Labor donors. It's a litany of failures. These aren't just one or two isolated cases. And this is the problem, Prue. You don't get an outbreak like this in Victoria, nearly 2,000 new cases in a matter of days, if there's only one or two minor errors. I mean, this is systemic failure.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? That, you know, they're even saying that the fact that these security guards were so slack, sleeping with people, allowing people out to have fags, getting, you know, Uber Eats, you know, all sorts of things. I mean, there was just no process in place, no specific protocols. The police should have been involved, the ADF should have been involved, and consequently, all of Victorians are suffering, and it looks like it's going to spread to New South Wales, and consequently, the rest of the country will probably be suffering as a result of this litany of errors and abject, I don't know, political machinations of Daniel Andrews, and I just think it's just so appalling that this man has done this to the rest of the country.
Yeah, just quickly before we move on, there's an essential poll out too. It was reported in The Guardian. In June, 65% of the sample said that Daniel Andrews was doing a good job. That's down to 49%. 49% this week. So it is cutting through. People are reading everything that's going on and they're getting angrier. I've got to ask you about Anthony Albanese, if I can, Stephen, because there were comments from Queensland MPs yesterday pushing for the Queensland government, these are federal MPs, Queensland federal MPs, pushing for the Queensland government to approve the new Acland coal mine. Reports today that Anthony Albanese has shut down those MPs. Senator Chisholm was one of those, doesn't want to talk about this issue. Now, Labor was talking about coal when they wanted the Adani votes in northern Queensland, not talking about coal. Now they're back talking about coal when they wanted coal in the votes in Eden-Monaro. Now they're not talking about coal. It's a bit of a kryptonite issue, isn't it?
Look, firstly, the issue around this environmental rules that have been used to block for 10 years plus is just absurd. So I think congratulations to my former colleagues, Chiz and Shane and Joel, for coming out and calling this out. My understanding, and I've checked at the highest levels, is this is not true. The Courier Mail story is not true. And Albo had some very strong comments in the papers today about the ridiculous length this has gone to try and stop it. So I don't believe there's any substance in that story. And good on those federal colleagues for calling it out, because if Labor thinks it can go to the next election with the same message about no support for the coal mining industry, it will get the same result. Same result in Western Australia, same result in Queensland, and they will not win a seat. So they have to absolutely step up and be seen to be supporting the coal mining industry in Western Australia and in Queensland.
Prue, just a quick one. Jacinda Ardern looks like she's been shot in the backside with a rainbow. She's just had a new opposition leader elected, Todd Mueller. He has stepped down. He's citing health reasons for his resignation. It's only a matter of weeks before the poll in New Zealand. She'll get another leader that'll be 3 in 3 months.
She can take the rest of the time off, can't she? I mean, just go and take a holiday. I mean, what a shambles. We think that our political environment is crook, but, they just can't get their act together in New Zealand, and there's no way the Nationals are going to be able to, I believe, resurrect somebody and win anything. It's a lay down misère for Ardern and Peters. She may not even need Peters.
Stephen Conroy, Prue MacSween, thank you very much for your time.